Good morning, guys. Today's topic is going to be about different types of governmental systems around the world. Our standard is compare the government of the United States with other governmental systems, including monarchy, limited monarchy, oligarchy, dictatorship, theocracy, and pure democracy. Okay, like I said earlier, there are many different types of governmental systems around the world. However, we're only going to focus on the 6 that I just mentioned. Below is a small map that I provided for you guys. It highlights the governmental systems around the world, and I want you guys to study this map because it is crucial for tomorrow's quiz. Okay? Alright, a monarchy, our first governmental system, otherwise known as absolute monarchy. Okay, it is a political system which is ruled by a single person or an individual ruler who functions as the head of state and achieves his or her position through heredity or birthright. Okay, and they're often called king, queen, emperor, or empress. Okay, so an example of an absolute monarchy is Saudi Arabia. Its king is Salman bin Abdul Aziz, and Saudi Arabia is an absolute hereditary monarchy which is governed by a king, and the royal family dominates the political system. So they have complete control over Saudi Arabia. Okay, a representative democracy versus a monarchy. We're comparing the U.S. governmental system. Okay, our governmental system is a representative democracy versus absolute monarchy, which is Saudi Arabia. Okay, first, the U.S. and Saudi Arabia both have a plan of succession to the presidential or monarchical seat. Okay, so for the U.S., if something were to happen to the president, the vice president then may succeed him in case the president were to resign, pass away, or face impeachment by the Senate. In Saudi Arabia, however, the king's family inherits the throne. The citizens of the United States get to choose their president through an electoral college system. In Saudi Arabia, a monarchy, the king's eldest son inherits the throne. Okay, so in the United States, once elected, the president runs for a period of no more than 2 terms, 4 years each. So it's taking this current election for an example. If President Trump were to win, then he gets to run for office in a second term. However, if he does not win, then Joe Biden becomes president. And Saudi Arabia, the king rules until his demise. Until he passes away, he stays in power. Okay, so Saudi Arabia follows a Sharia law with the Quran as its constitution. In the U.S., we have a constitution which outlines a democratic rule and has 3 different branches of government: the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. Okay. Limited monarchy. It is a government in which a monarch is limited by parliament and abide by a constitution, also known as a constitutional monarchy. So it's very different from an absolute monarchy. Some monarchs have no power at all. They're usually just figureheads. The citizens have more rights than an absolute monarchy. Okay, and the United Kingdom is a limited monarchy. This is an example of limited monarchy. And I'll give you a picture here of Queen Elizabeth, because she has no power in the United Kingdom. Okay. The United Kingdom versus the United States. So, the American government has checks and balances, which means that no government is powerful than the other. However, the UK has a parliament sovereignty, meaning that no part of government can challenge Parliament. So Parliament has the most power in the UK. Okay, so Parliament does have the House of Lords and the House of Commons, similar to how we have the House of Representatives and the Senate. Okay. However, the UK has a Prime Minister, the head of government. Remember, not the head of the people, which is a monarch. So this is what separates them from an absolute monarchy. Okay. and the US has a president. So these are just some differences between the two governmental systems. Okay, now we're moving on to oligarchy. I gave you guys a short video here to watch to demonstrate what is oligarchy.
Oligarch is a term which is thrown about quite often these days. But do you know what an oligarch is? Or where the term comes from? Well, stick around to find out. The dictionary defines oligarch as the following. 1. A ruler of an oligarchy. Or 2. A very rich business leader with a great deal of political influence. Looking at the first part of this definition, the word oligarchy comes from a Greek word meaning few, and the Greek meaning to rule or command. Thus, it literally means rule of the few. An oligarchy is a form of power structure in which power rests with a small number of people, and these people might be distinguished by nobility, have family ties, similar education, or simply religious or military control. Such states are often controlled by a few prominent families who typically pass their influence from one generation to the next, but inheritance is not necessarily a condition for the application of this term. Throughout history, oligarchies have often been tyrannical, relying on public obedience or oppression to exist. Aristotle pioneered the use of the term as meaning rule of the rich, for which another term commonly used today is plutocracy. The exclusive consolidation of power by a dominant religious or ethnic minority has also been described as a form of oligarchy. The second part of the definition of oligarch stated that they could be a very rich business leader with a great deal of political influence, especially in Russia. And a Russian oligarch is a wealthy businessman of the former Soviet republics who rapidly accumulated wealth during the era of Russian privatization. This was in the aftermath of the disbanding of the Soviet Union in the 1990s. With the failing of the Soviet state and the end of communism, ownership of state assets was contested, and this allowed for informal background deals with former USSR officials as a means to acquire state property quickly and cheaply. The men who acquired this property then used their new wealth to gain influence within the country. So that pretty much sums up what an oligarch is and what an oligarchy is. Russian oligarchs are a really interesting topic, possibly for another time, and I recommend looking up documentaries on them.
Okay, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to talk about the Russian oligarchy. Okay, Russia versus the United States. We're going to compare these two governmental systems. Russia is an oligarchy. So the government consists of a prime minister, his deputies, and his ministers. So it's into groups, and each has Each is more powerful. And they're all appointed by the president and authorized by the Duma, which is the state assembly. Russia is a federation with 3 branches of government, similar to the US. Their constitutional court and Supreme Court are appointed for life by the Federal Council, which is recommended by the president. In the US, the cabinet is appointed by the president with the Senate approval. Also similar to Russia, members of the Supreme Court are nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate, appointed for life. Okay, so they have many similarities. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about a dictatorship. Okay, a dictatorship is a form of government in which total control is given to a single individual or party. This implies that there is complete control by the dictator or party, and the rights of the people are restricted. So, an example of dictatorship is North Korea. Okay, North Korea's leader, Kim Jong-un, is a dictator. He has absolute power over the government system and the people. So he rules the government system and the people. People have limited freedom. He takes control over the entire country. The U.S., however, is extremely different. It has a constitutional federal republic, and its citizens have more rights They have freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom of religion. None of that is in North Korea. North Korea is a communist country, and it is centered on totalitarian rule. I'm sorry about that. Okay. Okay. Next, we're going to be talking about theocracy. Okay, so theocracy is a government ruled by a religious leader of some sort. A ruler or a group uses the power of gods and texts to create laws and guide governmental decisions. So it's more based on a religious type of rule. It's very common in the Middle East, and you could say Saudi Arabia, you could say Yemen. So yeah. Okay. Another example I'm going to provide you guys is Vatican City. Okay, it is an example of a theocracy because the Pope rules over the country. He has absolute power over the country, and just like America, they have 3 branches of government. Okay, it is the world's only elected non-hereditary absolute monarchy. Okay. Another unique fact over here, just throw it in. It's actually the world's smallest country, so that's pretty nice to know. Okay, however, in the US, the President of the United States has power. However, he does not act alone, unlike the Pope of Vatican City. The structure of the government of the US is divided into 3 separate branches, each with equal power. Like I said earlier, the US has a system of checks and balances, and this ensures that no branch can be more powerful than the other. So they keep each other in check. Does that make sense? Okay. Alright, now we're going to talk about pure democracy. Now, pure democracy is different from representative democracy, which is the US, what we have. This is really different because pure democracy is a government in which laws and policies are made directly by the citizens. So the citizens here have more rights than a US citizen would have. Okay, an example of this is Switzerland. Citizens here have more power than in a representative democracy. The People's Assembly, which is La Singida, I think that's what it's called. Citizens choose their representative in the Council of State by a show of hands. Okay, every 4 years, people elect 246 members of the National Parliament, which consists of 2 chambers, the House of Representatives and the Senate. What's cool here is that people can also veto laws. In the US, only the president can veto laws. The US citizens choose their representative and hope they win. The representative has more power than the citizens. And in the US, people vote for the representative who then enact policy initiatives. So I'm a Democratic. If Joe Biden does not win, then President Trump gets to run for another 4 years. And I don't agree with his public policy or his rhetoric. I don't agree with any of it. So that's why it is a loss on the Democrats. Okay. We're going to play a short activity that just sums up our lesson for today. I'm going to call each student to the board, and I want you guys to just spin the wheel and answer the question. Okay, so Emily, go up to the board and spin it. Oh, okay. All right, you don't get to answer. I'm sorry about that. All right, Sam, go and spin it. Okay. All right, Emily, come and try and spin it. Hopefully you'll get the question this time. Okay. I don't know what's wrong. Okay. Emily, you can try again. Awesome. All right. Now, the U.S. governmental system is similar to Russia's governmental system. What is the U.S. governmental system again? Remind me. A representative governmental system. Good job. What about Russia's? It's an oligarchy, right? Okay, are those similar? Yes? True or false? Sure. Good job.